Kitco News special coverage of Masari's annual Mainnet Summit is brought to you by Oasis Pro.
Hello, I'm Michelle Makori, and this is Kitco News coming to you from the Masari Mainnet Conference in New York City. And we are continuing our conversation with Chris Perkins, the CEO of CoinFund. Now, CoinFund invested in a rather controversial cryptocurrency project in 2022 when they invested in Worldcoin. Worldcoin is a project led by Sam Altman, the brains behind ChatGPT, and the project uses metallic orbs placed around the globe to scan people's eyeballs in exchange for a new cryptocurrency and World ID signups. Now, more than 2 million people have already visited the orbs, giving up their biometric data for a small amount of this new world token, or WLD. So, Chris, this project has raised a lot of eyebrows. What is CoinFund's interest in Worldcoin? Why did you get involved in this?
Sure. So there's some really big, I guess, verticals going on in development in crypto. I would say one is tokenization. I think one is the staking economy we talked about. And then the third is AI, right? Super interesting field, the intersection of AI and Web3. And one thing we like to say is that AI needs Web3 more than Web3 or crypto needs AI. And why is that? It's because Web3 allows you, it's the authenticator of AI, right? So we're already living in this world where we have all these bots, and it's getting exceedingly difficult to tell who is a person and who is not, right? And like, as you start thinking about deep fakes and how hard it's going to be and all the terrible things that could happen, and good things with AI, by the way, I'm not anti-AI, but how do you tell the difference? It's a huge problem, right? And so what are the solutions? And Vitalik Buterin, one of the founders of Ethereum, put out a paper on it. I think it's worth a read for your viewers. But what it implies is that there aren't, you can look at social graphing, like how does a person communicate and operate in different areas, and can you bring it together and understand if it's a person or not based on their behavior and their language? Social graphing is hard. But another way to do it is via biometrics. And biometrics are probably the easiest and most efficacious way to tell if you're a person or not, okay? So I think when I talk to people about Worldcoin, I think the first question is, do we have a problem here? Is it hard to tell, do we have to solve this problem of human or bot? The answer is usually, yeah, that's a problem, okay? Next question is, okay, what's the solution? How are we gonna solve it? And people are like, well, it sounds like biometrics are the right way. Okay, great, but I care about privacy. So what if I were to come to you with a project that solves for privacy, and it also leverages biometrics to really solve and show the difference between if you're a human or if you're a bot? And that's the thesis behind why we supported Worldcoin. Is because we believe it's a way that leverages the most efficacious means of proof of humanity while maintaining that privacy through ZK technology and being able to solve like a really, really important problem. And then of course I ask people, well, have you ever gone to Clear? And they're like, yeah, because it's great. It gives me something. I get to go into faster online, right? Yeah, but all your data is already gone. This gives you something too. And the utility it gives you is in the future, it'll allow you to operate in this internet world that we live in with somebody understanding that you're a person.
Right, okay, so I clearly understand the need to establish proof of person in a world of increasing AI, deep fakes, bots, as we just discussed. Worldcoin says it's building the world's largest identity and financial network as public utility. So how does the financial network come into play here?
Yeah, there's a thesis around UBI as well.
Universal basic
yes, so universal basic income. So tokens are a means to incentivize behavior. And so they do have tokens that they award to people for getting the scan and moving forward. And so the thinking there is, hey, how do we leverage these tokens to help?
Why don't we actually take a pause there and actually go through the entire process? To explain to our viewers what the process is when you are confronted with an orb, and then go back to the UBI angle.
There are a handful of orbs in the United States. People say, well, you can't do it in the United States. You can, but But what they've done is they've geofenced, so you're not allowed to collect the tokens out of regulatory concern. But you can still get, in the United States, your World ID, as it's called. So you find an operator, you go in and you scan. It's this thing called an orb. It's a ball. It scans your eyeball, and there's an app that you open, and as you process through the app, it will scan your eyeball and it will essentially hash. So it will take that data and turn it into a unique footprint, and then it will issue it to you via your phone. The biometrics are not kept on the orb, but that unique hash, unique to yourself, is something that you have. And so you're able to operate in this internet economy with a unique identifier that represents it's you and you're a person, but it does not keep your biometric data.
And how would I operate with that? I'm a human identifier. How do you see people needing to use that in the future or even in the present?
Yeah, so a lot of times in Web3, you can go and participate and do certain tasks in order to be rewarded an NFT, as an example, or to benefit from an airdrop. And so what it does is it helps defend against this thing called the Sybil attack, where a bot can create many like wallets and in order to try to game like an award that's given, right? So it's almost like Halloween candy, right? You go up and you get your 2 little pieces of chocolate. If you were able to have the bots do it, they would run you out of all that candy really quick. And so it proves, as you're going into the internet and navigating Web3, for tokens or for other things, that you're a unique person. Because a lot of times, like or gaming, for example, gaming is a massive industry. How do you make sure that you're a person entering that game and you're not playing against a bot that's going to outperform you every time? So there's a ton of utility. I think we're just getting started, but yes.
And how does the financial network play into that? Well, we start to talk about the UBI, the Universal Basic Income, because that is the stated mission, right? Financial network is a public utility. So what is that angle here for Worldcoin?
Yeah, I think that's an added benefit that the team is working through is, how do you reward folks who are part of that network with the token? There's also abilities to have wallets and to transact more freely with stablecoins and other tokens in the future. But yeah, that's part of what they're delivering is providing financial access to people around the world. I think it's a noble theme, but again, that ability to prove that you're a person is incredibly valuable.
And I can see that being valuable. But this project has created a lot of controversy, certainly in the countries that it's been underway for a longer period of time, with concern about collection of biometric data. That's not personally my concern, and we'll get to that. But it has received a lot of pushback with regards to maintaining the privacy of this biometric data in a centralized facility or a centralized project, right? Why should people not be concerned about that?
Again, they don't store data.
But I believe when you sign, you give consent to either have your data stored or not have it stored. And you can consent to have it stored when you sign up.
Right. So, it's very easy to not consent to have your data stored. And so I don't think they're forcing anyone to do that.
But the people that sign, I consent, then their data gets stored.
But if you don't consent, then don't.
But is it one of those things where you really have to read the fine print and it's an automatically I consent unless I tick it off type of thing? Is it a default?
No, it's not a default.
You get these contracts and you're scrolling through and just say accept terms.
No, it's very simple. I would love to invite you to our office and we can go through the process.
I may take you up on that. Again, it's not that I'm afraid of biometric data. As I told you before we started the interview, I participate in Clear because of the advantages. I've participated working at Bloomberg, where I had to give my thumbprint to log onto my Bloomberg terminal. It's not a biometric data issue. As we discussed earlier, when you go into border control, you have to give your fingerprints. People have my data already. The issue when it comes to this kind of mass gathering is the link to a digital ID. And a universal digital ID that centralizes all of your information and then links it to a central bank digital currency or some other access to your money, even if it's not a central bank digital currency in the interim, and a social credit score, and a carbon credit score, a how climate friendly you are score, and all of those dystopian Orwellian scenarios that can spiral very quickly when you have a digital ID, which allows tremendous oversight, tremendous control, which comes with that lack of anonymity and lack of privacy.
I couldn't agree with you more. And that's the whole idea behind Web3, right? When the internet started, and I remember I was in my college dorm room back in the 90s, early 90s, it was a very fragmented, terrible user experience, but it was decentralized. But over time, we've come into this era now where everything is centralized. The internet is controlled by like 5 people, and they take all of our data, and they don't give us anything back in return. They use it against us. They market against us, right? The whole idea behind Web3 is taking charge and sovereignty back over your data to reintroduce privacy, decentralization, right? And to be able to operate, in a way that's not where you're not, being manipulated by the bots, right? And so, like, as I unpack Worldcoin, it's perfectly aligns with our decentralization thesis. We are investors that invest in decentralized technologies. Something like a Worldcoin ID that does not have biometrics, but it asserts that you're a person, allows you to navigate through a decentralized environment. Like, as we look at AI, which is a very, very exciting theme of investment for us, you have 2 choices, right? You can build off of the legacy centralized systems that we have, right? Closed data, where they train their own models. There's not really transparency around those models. And they build out the outcomes that they deserve in those closed data sets. In Web3, we're trying to use open data sets, bigger data sets. We're trying to leverage decentralized compute, and we're trying to deliver transparency around the outputs of those models. But long story short, 1,000% violent agreement that the centralized, you got my wallet, you have my tokens, you have my ID, my biometrics, you have everything, my health. That's a very dystopian vision. And what we're trying to do is invest in a world that provides a decentralized alternative. So
you would be a competitor to a governmental digital ID, or a separate use case?
Separate use case, right? Because today, you don't have a choice, right? If you want to prove that you're a person, you have to give somebody a lot of personal information. You have to show them your driver's license. You have to show them your passport. Wouldn't it be better if I just showed them my Worldcoin ID hash that says, yes, I'm a person, right? Rather than having to give them all the other data, right? So it's a way to, again, preserve some privacy and maintain proof that you're just a human, because that's all we're trying to prove here.
But with the separation of the other data, there's decentralization of personal data in a way, right? I mean, I get that it's being gathered, but my passport is a separate document from my driver's license, which is a separate document from my birth certificate, from my health records. It's not all collectively assembled and then linked to my bank account. And if that is the direction that we're moving in, there is concern that operations like Worldcoin could help facilitate that. Like, how do people know that if they participate in the Worldcoin project, that somehow does not get purchased, co-opted by a governmental organization that is looking to make this universal digital ID?
I don't see the correlation, honestly, because what Worldcoin allows you to do is prove that you're a human being, right? And they do not maintain biometrics data, right? So do I think that certain governments are moving forward with that exact vision that you described? Absolutely. But Worldcoin is a solution to that challenge, not something that's going to help move us in a direction that you state.
How is it a solution to that challenge?
Because you'll be able to operate in the internet as a human being without having to fork over additional information that is used and taken in many different directions that you're not aware of.
All right, assuming that the other players on the internet and Web3 accept my Worldcoin ID. Because we are moving, and maybe I should get your thoughts on this as a general practice, the UN does have a goal that by 2030, we should all have digital IDs. It's part of the Sustainable Development Goals of 2030. That's linked to carbon credit systems that they're looking to implement by 2030. You're smiling at me, but this is in the UN. It's very clearly laid out, along with cooperation from the World Economic Forum, and hence the concern that we will have these digital IDs, again, linked to a social credit system, linked to a carbon system. For example, I always bring up this example: if I've taken 10 flights, I've exceeded my carbon output for the month, and that gets deducted from my central bank digital currency that is linked to my ID. Or if I've eaten too much meat, that impacts my carbon footprint. And then my CBDC, which is linked to my ID, doesn't work to allow me to purchase the next piece of steak that I want, for example. I mean, when we describe this, is this to you something that is going to be a reality?
I think it's pretty clear that certain governments are heading in that direction. So technology is technology, right? We can use blockchain technology to do the exact opposite thing, right? What blockchain technology allows you to do is to go peer-to-peer, decentralized transactions and store values. And God willing, as we look forward to introducing more privacy to the space, these are the values that we hold in the Web3 space. The alternative is to leverage technology to put forth extreme centralization. And as you go around the conference today, you'll find out that most of the people in the room are what we call like decentralization maxis. Yeah. They want a world where you have control of your own data, right? You have control of your own privacy, right? Those are the values that you'll see at crypto conferences. And everything that you described previously is something that we're trying to avoid at all costs. And so like when you bring it back to Worldcoin is going to help us unlock that decentralized vision, but I don't see a world where it's used to centralize everything. Those are other folks with different agendas, but not here in a crypto conference.
So what is the business model for Worldcoin then? How do you see it playing out? How does Worldcoin make money at the end of the day? You pay to have your ID work. What is the business model?
I think I think there's incredible value associated with, again, they're solving a really important problem, and there's value associated with solving that problem. And so whether it's through accretion of the token price, which drives demand in time, there are a number of different ways, but for now, like they've solved a really important problem, we believe, which is being able to provide proof of personhood at a very important time.
Right, but how would I get that, and I get that is a legitimate problem, and it'll increasingly be needed to prove that you're a person as AI and so forth goes on, but how does it link? You're an investor in this project. I'm assuming that there is an idea to make money at this point. So I get that the coin appreciates based on the number of people that sign up, but how would you effectively charge people to use this, or charge other players? Is that the model? Like, at what point does Worldcoin start to bring in money? What would be the revenue stream?
Yeah, I mean, we invest in both equity and in tokens, and I think that as you unpack the way that they've designed the tokenomics, like as investors, it's our hope and desire that those tokens appreciate, right? And so as any portfolio company delivers utility, and those tokens are a means of incentivization and helping to drive that utility, they have value. And so that's what we look at investors, is how we anticipate adoption, problem solving, and then how we envision the growth of both equity valuations and also token valuations. And so, it's our belief that this is going to be a project that drives a successful business model, and we expect over time for demand to increase. What makes prices go up? More buyers and sellers, right? And so it's our belief that there's going to be demand on the token side, and that's why we made the investment.
All right, I'm slightly less afraid of Worldcoin now. Yeah,
open invitation, Michelle.
Still very afraid of digital IDs, universal digital IDs and CBDCs, only because I'm a libertarian at heart and like to have autonomy and freedom of choice. But I may just freely choose to participate and maybe stop by and see how that whole thing works. As I say, I will. Clear already has my data, so
What's the difference?
what's the difference? I'm sure somebody could get it if they really wanted to. All right, well, thank you so much, Chris. Really appreciate you covering a range of topics with us.
Thank you.
Enjoyed the conversation.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Chris Perkins, thank you.
Thank you.
Kitco News special coverage of Masari's annual Mainnet Summit is brought to you by Oasis Pro.